Viewers, welcome to this discussion. As usual, this time also we bring very topical, very relevant subject for discussion and very eminent speaker to discuss with. Theme of today's discussion, which is brought by Patriots Forum, is about Resurgent Bharat. Time to take a stand, and this mainly focuses on a book which is authored by Mr. Jay Bhattacharya. Mr. Bhattacharya, you are welcome, and let's go further. And I will introduce about the theme and expand the subject a little further. Our core ethos are under tremendous pressure and challenges, and it is time to take a stand now. Author Jay Bhattacharya sees ample reasons for every Indian to get up and take a stand. He draws attention to the age-old theory and precept in international law that deals with the legitimate right of self-defense of nation facing imminent danger and threat. In a specific case of existential threat that West Bengal is facing from deadly forces, he laments that the rest of the country is almost clueless. This analyst has written candidly about the grave danger that confronts West Bengal at this juncture and India as a whole in the final stage. He highlights that the Indian Republic is under siege as I take your I beg your pardon, metaphorically. He sees termites crawling. And as experienced people, we know termites start crawling out of wood only when they have reached a large number and they find other opportunities equally enjoyable for them, again to rot and destroy another woodwork. So it is only the most naive to or gullible even for us who will see nothing amiss with what is going on. Of course, the forces behind the crisis will stridently proclaim that the mass unrest is spontaneous and is a reaction to certain legislation that has been just enacted. The book under review is authored by Shri Jay Bhattacharya, who is an advisor in corporate laws and finances based in Delhi. His other areas of interest include socio-political issues and military history. He advised Dow Crowning Europe. Dow Crowning Europe is having their formidable presence in India, and he looked after investment strategy for the Indian subsidiary, which is called multi-base. He also coordinated with the relevant government and regulatory authorities during his assignment. He is media commentator and columnist of high repute and has been regularly writing to many big names in print media. He can be connected through email, which are given in description box. And the discussion is conducted by Patriots Forum, which is devoted to preservation and promotion of ancient Indian culture against emerging threats to its survival from prevalent religious demographic challenges. Once again, Mr. Bhattacharya, it is a privilege and honor to have you on discussion on a subject which probably draw attention of every patriotic citizen. And my first question is, when you finish your writing, you search for the title or you search for the title and then started writing the book?
Well, let me first Thank you, Captain Sab. Thank the viewers whom I cannot see. I hope to interact with them via the other. It's a difficult question. Do I write the title after writing the article or the other way around? I think it's a combination of both. It depends on the mood. If it is something which I feel very deeply emotional about, and I think emotion, there's nothing wrong to be, we shouldn't be defensive about emotion. Emotion is a very rich aspect of our psyche. So, to answer your question, if I feel something emotionally touching, I start writing and the title follows. Sometimes it's the other way around. The Captain Saab has been very kind and over generous in his description about my limited talents, but whatever it is, I feel very strongly that our ancient civilization is now facing an existential threat. It's well known, we are a new political entity, a new republic, relatively young republic, but we are a very ancient culture. This should make all Indians proud, but being proud of one's heritage is not the same as chauvinism. I mean, this is something which many commentators in India pick upon, and they say, and they even use the term nationalism in a negative format. Now, this is something I totally disagree with. A nation state has its own history, its own culture, its own civilization, its own roots, and there is absolutely nothing wrong in being attached to these variables. After all, our psyche is very much a part of our total emotional existence. The dangers to India, as Captain Tyagi has said, are known to most of us. Some of us would tend to take a very blasé view. That look, it's an international world. There is a multicultural, multi-religious, multilingual community throughout the globe. Yes, but each cultural entity, and this is the sociologist that is speaking, not the financial part or the economist. So the economics also does recognize national boundaries and nation states. But culturally, a sociologist would say that every group of kindred people, they have shared values. They may not share a language, they may not share a religion, but they will share values. Now, in my mind, our glorious Indic civilization has an enormous treasure of values. And it's futile to argue, Captain, whether we are 5,000 years old or 3,000 years old, or, there are some JNU historians who will say we are a young civilization. Good luck to them. If you want to denigrate your roots, go ahead. But the world recognizes the Indic civilization as one of the oldest. And we don't have to compete in a hurdles race to watch the others fall. If we are confident about our cultural roots, we don't need to worry about with what others claim. History, science, technology, these will prove our claims. And India is now well on the way to worldwide. The world is recognizing this. Swami Vivekananda was a clairvoyant person. The entire Indic Renaissance, which started with in the 1750s after the British, they also fought against 1,000 years of foreign occupation and the mindset that comes with foreign occupation. Let's not delude ourselves. The Mughals were not from this part of the world. They were West Asians. They came to conquer. They came for our richness, our economic richness. They didn't come here to shake our hands and say, "Oh, what a lovely place Hindustan is." The gobbledygook, which the Lachan zone, which is a term I've used very frequently in the book, Lachan zone secularists use. I am not defensive. I will go ahead and expose the Lachan zone secularists, which I've tried in my book, because we are a wounded civilization. Naipaul, the great Indian from 10,000 kilometers from the West Indies, from the Indian diaspora, was probably much more of a true Indian than many of us are. Our drawing room salon circles in Delhi. Why Delhi? Calcutta and Bombay, Kolkata and Mumbai. Our drawing room salon circles, they all make fun of our roots. Well, good luck to them, because there's a new India waiting in the horizons. The title of the book, there's a young publishing firm who's really gone out of its way, the editors and the management, to encourage me to publish this book. The title of this book, Resurgent India, is, at one stage, we seriously thought, should we say Resurgent Bharat or Resurgent India? After a long series of discussion with the editors and the others, we chose Resurgent Bharat. And there was another debate, which my viewers and Captain Saab might like. The debate was whether it should be Resurgent Bharat with a question mark or Resurgent Bharat without a question. The question mark was suggested by some sympathetic friends. Said, are we really on the path of resurgence? That is what a question mark would mean. The absence of the question mark means that we are on the resurgent path, but it's not an easy path. It's not sort of paved with roses and good all the way. It's a path which is uphill. It's a path which is difficult. It is a path which has a lot of obstacles. You as an ex-armed forces man, Captain, you would have faced this. This is something which the rest of the population must also realize it. Intellectuals are one thing, but you have to take the nation with you. This is what the great Napoleon, we needed. Later on, of course, he became an emperor, but I'm a great admirer of Napoleon. He's called the citizen army. It was France which introduced the concept of the citizen army. Yes, IMA, Dehradun, everything and all that. France also has its Saint-Cyr, which is the French, and older than Sandhurst. But the citizens of the country are the backbone of your defending forces. So this is what the book deals with. What are the obstacles? I think the chapters will give some idea. The first chapter talks about the Indic civilization and culture. It's a broad introduction. Then we go on to the current political scenario. Then the third chapter is a bit interesting. It deals with, it's called the Eastern Caliphate. It deals with West Bengal. Now, I am not a Bengali in the sense of, I am not a Bengali. I am what is called a Provashi Bengali. I was born in Bombay. My first language in school was Marathi. Then we came to Delhi. My father got transferred to Delhi. And now I'm a son-in-law of the Punjab, so I'm a true Indian. But Bengal, to my mind, I'm very proud of the language and the culture. I make no hesitation in saying that it was the Bengal Renaissance which brought in the first thing. In fact, Utpal Dutt, who is more known as a film actor and a rather poor film actor, was an excellent teacher in a Calcutta school. And once he was interviewed on Doordarshan, and the lady said, Mr. Dutt, what do you think of the Indian Renaissance? And he said, no, there was no Indian Renaissance. It was the Bengal Renaissance. So the Eastern Caliphate, West Bengal today, is a problem which I'm very, very concerned about. It is an existential threat for India today, the way Bengal is going. So it's Eastern Caliphate. Then we go on to the question, of the book goes on to the resurgent India question mark. It talks about the obstacles. And international politics is a very critical area, how they impact on us. Then I come to a chapter which is very close to my heart, Captain, is the Indian military, the Indian armed forces. In our family, from both sides, my father's side and mother's side, we had a very large number of people in the armed forces. And even people who joined the British Indian Army or the British Indian Armed Forces in 42, 43, but they were I'm talking about our family members, they were very, very nationalistic and patriotic, almost at the same level as the INA, though being on the Indian Army side. They looked upon the Indian Army post-independence. They were forward thinkers. So the military and strategic issue is something I'm very, very attached to emotionally, and otherwise also I've done a little bit of studies. Then comes the threat aspect again, which I've called, the chapter is called The Republic Under Siege. Largely deals with the CAA agitation and the other agitations and the other threats. Then the Lachan zone, what are the obstacles? Now the Lachan zone is something which we can't wish away. They are very powerful. They are deeply entrenched. So in this book, these articles, they try to understand the way it works. Then I had to write about corporate affairs because that is where I drew my living. My initial columns in the Indian press, the Telegraph and Times of India, were in corporate affairs. Then the judiciary is something which I had to. There's a major bottleneck and constraint, and I had to be very careful writing. The contempt of court powers are frightening. And the last, of course, is a chapter which I had to put in. My editors insisted is I wrote some humorous and satirical pieces over the years in the Times of India and in others. So they wanted to give the readers a little bit of lightweight this thing so they could enjoy it. And that's the end of the journey. So it was a journey which started in 1992 when I started writing. And these essays have just gone on and on. And I've enjoyed it. I've had a blast. So now the book is about to be released, and it's another few weeks. So let's wait.
So, Mr. Bhattacharya, when this book is published, it will be available for our viewers to buy it online. And I believe it will be available on Amazon, isn't it?
It will be on Amazon. It will be on the other Flipkart and others also. Directly, the publishers will also. They are not averse to selling on their own. There is an thing. There will be the publisher will bring out a series of for the readers. They have to earn their bread and butter and pay for their staff. And they've been extremely, Captain, extremely kind people like you are. Your kindness in inviting me is the same as they have been.
I have gone through the chapters summary which you have shared with me, and I look forward to reading the book, complete book. But I could gather that the book is having few paradoxes. This book gives us encouragement and desire and positive vibes that India is resurgent, is going to get more powerful, more progress, more developed, and it will be something which world will look up to. So one side is that projection, and other side there are also negative projections that there are grave threats. We are going through the existential threats, and we should be watchful. If we are not watchful, then lot of bad is going to happen. So I take only positive side of the book. Of course, as author, it is author's duty to share with the readers everything. It is not with any agenda. So you have done justice to the subjects which India must be putting focus on. So coming to positive side first, resurgent India. What do you see India is going to be in 5 years, 10 years, and let's talk about 2050. Because 2020, India would not be superpower. That was analysis by experts many years back. So we are not looking at India 2020 being superpower. But India will be superpower in 2050. What are your projections?
I think to come back to your first question, you're being very kind. It is the duty of every citizen, it's the duty of every writer, it's the duty of every government officer, every industrialist, every citizen to look at the picture objectively. We have opportunities, we have threats. To combine them, an overview of the. If you look at only the opportunities and if you don't look at the obstacles, you're not doing a professional job. The reverse is the case. So you only look at the difficulties and then don't look at the comparative advantages India has. So it's a difficult path to traverse. But Captain, let me say that in our lives also we reconcile opposites. So it's not something which, and with the passage of years, hopefully you and I and our other friends, our contemporaries, I hopefully we have got that level of objectivity and sort of a dispassionate spirit, because that's important. We can't be swinging from one extreme to the other. So I think your point is very valid. Take the pluses and the minuses, to use schoolboy language or school children's language, can't be sexist. Let's do that. We have to do that. And on the other hand, at the end of the exercise, you have to give your conclusion, Captain. I'm sure when you're out in the field and you're seeing the enemy across the, you have to come to a conclusion. You've done that. In my limited senior NCC training, also we learned this from the instructors in Fort William, Calcutta, basics. But the thing is, sitting down with my uncles who were in the armed forces right from childhood, my father encouraged me to sit down with them. I learned how a truly professional military mind operates. The same in the corporate sector, we have to do the same thing. We look at opportunities, we look at the difficulties, and in the license Raj, Captain, I mean, there are people here who have worked in the corporate sector like me in the license Raj. We had to look at the obstacles all the way. So, 2050, we won't be around, and I'm not being dramatic. I'm thinking neither of us will be around, given the facts of life. But the assessment is, if India doesn't become the third or the fourth power in the world, we will have missed the bus. We need to be in the first five. And in a genuine thing, not just having billionaires in all over the world market who are gobbling up companies. That's a very childish interpretation of economic power. No, we don't have to be very focused on those aspects. We have to have a truly developed society, a humane society, a civilized society, which has its roots in a 5,000 years. Now somebody will say 4,000 years. I'm not going to go into that. But that India was in the world scene thousands of years ago. So we must be proud of it. We must go back to our roots. We have given enormous amounts of contribution to the world. I've had friends in some parts of the world, in Europe and in America and Singapore, who have openly said, non-Indians, not of Indian origin, not NRIs, who have said that India's contribution to the universal values, the universal list of achievements is enormous. So in 2050, we should have a proud but not a braggadocio, not a bragging. That's not what our rishis and munis taught us. We have to have a mature India, which is powerful, which is not pushed around, but which also doesn't go around and conquer portions of the world. We have never done that. Captain, I tell my friends, from Cambodia to Greece, Indian culture is spread, not by the sword. So we should have a compassionate India in 2050.
It was very fashionable to talk about Vision 2020. President APJ Kalam has written, and the entire country was motivated, encouraged, and enthusiastic about it. At that time, around 2013, there was an article which made projection that India will not be superpower in 2020. But by 2030, hitherto bipolar world will be converted into tripolar world, and India will be the third pole beside China and America. And by 2050, world will be bipolar world, and China will be one, and India will be another pole, and USA will be its India's junior partner. That was very absurd kind of article. Today, do you see some reality or some possibility in it?
Well, it really doesn't matter to me whether we are the second this thing or whether we are the third. If we are in the first five, don't forget Europe. In this that article missed out the role of Europe. Europe is Europe as a political entity, as an economic entity. France and Germany and Britain may have a lot of differences, but Europe is a consolidated force. So you have Europe, and don't forget, Africa will also come up in a lower position if they play their cards well. So it will be a multipolar world, Captain. I don't think we should conceive of a tripolar world. I mean, that would be this thing. But 2020, that vision, well, we missed it already.
Anyway, Corona is not yet over. Many things can happen, and one small denominator will change the whole calculation. So now I go to area of attention. Like in introduction, I mentioned that your commentary about West Bengal. West Bengal is planned to be converted into Greater Bengal. Probably you heard or read about this conspiracy theory. Do you subscribe to this type of planning that there will be a Greater Bengal, which will be constituting, Assam, Bengal, and Bangladesh, and that kind of thing, and a
No,
political leader will
do the same, Captain. No, the
no.
Greater Bengal concept is is current Bangladesh and what Suravardi and the others tried. They tried to, and Jinnah tried. Had it not been for the great Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, India would have lost our Bengal, what is currently West Bengal, where the facts are very clear. And I say that because there is a personal element there. Though my mother and aunt, they were not in the Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee's party later on. They were not in the Jansan as such, but very close family links. And Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was one of the witnesses in my parents' marriage. See, my parents had a Brahmo Samaj marriage, which had to be registered. So Dr. Mukherjee was one of the witnesses. So Dr. Mukherjee saved West Bengal. Otherwise, let me assure you, Nehru and Gandhi, I'm ready to face a flag. I'm not written in the book, but there are enough hints in this Eastern Caliphate chapter. They had almost given up Bengal. The Great Calcutta killing in Noakhali, they had given up. Gandhi went and said that the people of Noakhali must accept their fate.
But I take your attention and viewers' attention also. You have written that there is a grave danger which confronts West Bengal at this juncture and India as a whole in the final stage. What is that final stage you are indicating, and what would be the threat?
No, the West Bengal threat, of course, the Bangladesh threat is very clear, and I would like my readers also to go through that. And at that stage, the illegal immigration from Bangladesh post 71, encouraged by the CPM and now encouraged by the current regime, this person, whom I have referred to throughout in my book as Begum Mamata. People might not like it, but I'll take the flak. That's if West Bengal goes. I had written a last article in the Indian Defence Review, which is not included in this book, just before the West Bengal elections. And I had said, what will India lose if West Bengal is lost to India? This is a question I had posed. And the editors of the journal were very kind. They didn't omit a single line. So the threat will come. If Bengal goes, then you can imagine what the threat to India. The mind boggles. And not the Bengali in me which is speaking. It's an Indian that is speaking.
Mr. Bhattacharya, we as Indians are very easygoing, temperamentally, and I would say attitudinally. We are person easy to be happy and ready to celebrate. So, can you identify a few areas which are reason for cheer and celebration, which has happened only recently? I'm not talking about what politically is happening, but what as the society uh, we are doing to be cheerful about.
There are areas of strength in the Indian scenario. There's no doubt about it. The Indian scenario has many positives. Cheerful, of course, we should be otherwise also. Even when facing adversity, Captain, we should be cheerful. So that's a slight touch of fear. But there are reasons to be optimistic. We have, deep down, we have comparative advantages, which the world knows. The Indian mind is a very sophisticated mind. I'm not being racist. I tell all the ambassadors and the others that look, when we were doing differential equations, the Europeans were having raw meat. I'm notorious for saying these things to them. And on the BBC, I once said that about 10 years ago. After that, they never invited me. So we have a lot of things to be confident about. We have a natural intelligence, we have a natural capacity to, it comes from 1,000 years of history. Nothing particularly Indian about it. Africa also, my visit to Africa on the part of my employers, I went to set up some projects in Africa. Extremely intuitive people, extremely intuitive people. The parts of Africa, I went to Kenya, Tanzania. So we have these advantages. We are bright. The other disadvantages are we get very emotional. Then lose the perspective of distance. Scholars also. We must combine the present, the immediate future, and the long term. There has to be a rigorous balance of all three. So, on the hand, we have advantages.
In the morning itself, today morning, one of my friend was telling me that when entire world shivers thinking about load shedding, we find it opportunity to go out and early morning go for morning walk, go for evening walk when it is pitch dark. So even load shedding, which makes entire world very worried. We have seen what is happening in England. We have seen how factories are shutting down in China, and media is talking about shortage and power cut and load shedding, all that. But as Indian, we are not very perturbed because if load shedding is going to happen, we will sail through. Even today, हर हिंदुस्तानी के घर में हाफ वाला पंखा है. So we are self-reliant to that extent. So there are things, to be happy and cheerful, and it is not for nothing that India has got largest number of festivals and holidays attributed to festivals. Now, let's discuss something which is core theme of your book and title. And in that, do you see India going to achieve $3 trillion economy? Is it pipe dream, as people used to say 2 years back, or is it part of reality going to happen soon?
If we play our cards well, Captain, if we play our cards well, now you will say that I'm qualifying my answers. No, but we have to have a balanced approach. We have enormous mental and physical, intellectual / mental and physical resources. But we should not go. Our problem is a sense of balance. We go from one extreme to the other. If you pardon my asking you, the sense of balance, of rigor. We have the rigor more than the sense of balance. We tend to swing from one extreme to the other. We have comparative advantages. We have, at the end of the day, after the shocks of the COVID, when the country was taken apart by antisocial elements, ranging from the medical fraternity to the hospitals, terrible lack of discipline in this country that was manifested from business corporations to the local kirana. They did what is Japan. This didn't happen in parts of the Buddhist parts of the world, many parts of the world. I'm not talking about Thailand, but Vietnam and Cambodia. This didn't happen. But in India, this happened to a great shame and ignominy. But we pulled back. We had a particular bunch of leaders who did it. And let's be very clear. If the UPA government had been in power, I can give you a bet. Any bet, say I'm a soft drinker, so I can give you coffee. If the UPA government had been in power, we would have collapsed. There were problems. The bureaucracy is a problem. The judiciary is a problem. But at the end of the day, we managed to pull our fingers out from the fire. I don't know whether it answers your question, but to the extent we do wrong things, I'm talking about the last 8 years, we've done wrong things, we have recognized our errors, largely, and we have pulled back.
Yeah, Indians are perpetually optimistic, and you have given no reasons for me and our viewers to feel otherwise. Let's remain optimistic and see how these dreams are coming to reality. Because that is the way we dream our India to be someday. From my side, there is a last question, and like Yaksh Prashna. In Mahabharata, Yaksha is always asking the most difficult question, and invariably there is no condition attached. So I'm asking the Yaksh Prashna now. Intentionally, I kept it to the last, though it is the opening remark which I made for introduction. Our core ethos are under tremendous pressure and challenges. What are those core ethos?
The core Indian ethos is one of compassion, one of acceptance, one of foresight, one of maturity, and in the final, this thing of a basic, deep down mental disobedience of tyranny. We have not accepted. When the Mughals took over vast parts of northern India, they couldn't capture the minds of the Indians. Let's be very clear about that. The Rajputs, yes, some Rajput princes and these things collaborated. By and large, they never managed to. This happened when the British came to us. I always tell my English friends that we, being in Bengal, the British were the first to come invade Bengal and take over Bengal, and that's how they came to India. But we also threw them out of Bengal first. They moved their capital to Calcutta, from Calcutta to Delhi, with no insults, but they found it easier to rule India. They found the Bengal revolutionaries much too difficult. So that, I think, should answer your question. we have in India, we do have the capability of resisting tyranny. And I think we did that for 1100 years. We are now, we have a regime which, with all its faults, regime which wants to look after the country and the people. That's the prime difference.
In fact, there is a remark which is not coming from the live viewer. Someone has already shared the question to me and wanted you to respond to that question. And he says that probably when the book was being finalized, the threat coming from Afghanistan was not known to author. Today,
Absolutely.
would you like to make comment on this new threat which India would be facing, emanating from Afghanistan situation?
No, the questioner is absolutely correct because the last article that the book has was in March on the Bengal election scenario. And the theme, Afghanistan is something which the Americans didn't realize. What would it was such a shock to the American military leadership. They're still under shock. My friends tell me, and if there are some many people who are watching the show from the US, they didn't know what hit them. And the Americans are very bad losers, Captain. I had once a French friend who told me that, you know, we French, we liberated America from the British. That's true. So but after that, the French say the Americans have become so anti-French. I said, yes, this is an old Indian saying that if somebody has helped you, you don't like that person. So in Afghanistan, the Americans got hit. If cricketing terminology व्यवहार करना पड़ेगा, they got hit for a sixer. There was absolutely no inside information with them.
A question again, this is not the question which was shared in advance, but this is question coming from another expert, and with a comment, there is a question, and he says that when anyone talks about existential threat India is facing or Indian society is facing, that clearly means one thing, which author is not in so many words talking about. And he says that lot of things are being written. Author probably intentionally omitted Ghazwa Hind. So when you talk about existential threat, it is linked to concept of Ghazwa Hind. It is linked to supremacy world over and creating Nizam-e-Mustafa. So how you are not specifically talking or writing about it?
No, this book clearly mentions the threat of one particular religious ideology. And that is Islam. That is Islam. The book is very clear. There are many friends of mine who said they will not buy my book. I said, thank you. They continue to be friends of mine because I've written on this in the last, from 1995, I've written on the threat of Islam to India, existential. You see, the Christianity, with all its faults, and Judaism was never a threat to the world. In fact, they have contributed so much to human patrimony, the Jews. But Islam, today Europe is now coming around to it. Britain and the British Prime Minister Johnson may not say it openly, but I'll tell you, my friends say that they are very concerned. France, the number two in the next presidential election after Macron, is a new person called Zemmour, who has even become from number four or so, he has become number two in that. You know, but elections are always unpredictable. But Europe realizes it. Russia is extremely aware of that. They have their own particular internal problems of corruption and so on and so forth. Gone are the days of the USSR, Captain. Let's not equate the current Russia with the old USSR, which had its strengths and weaknesses. The weaknesses made it collapse. But Europe is also a very major player in this, where they realize the threats. On the one hand, they say that we have to accommodate the existing immigrants who have been here for 30, 40 years. But the existing immigrants in many of these countries, Holland, France, UK, they have not integrated. Now the question is, how does the world, do we put our heads under the sand? Do we behave like the cocktail parties in New Delhi, in the IIC, in the International Center? Or we say that, look, it is not an emotional attitude. I have nothing against a person who keeps to his faith. But if the other person comes and says, Joy Bhattacharjee, you have to join mine, or I'll throw your family out. That is the time we have to draw the line. Oh, by the way, our family comes from East Bengal. And they were driven out in batches after batches, not in 47. Unlike the Punjabi refugees who came in one exodus, this is the tragedy of Bengal. This is what Dr. Mukherjee and others, this is what I tell my wife. I am a son-in-law of the Punjab and I tell my in-laws that आप लोग कभी नहीं समझोगे कि बंगाली refugees की क्या अवस्था थी. 47, the next exodus was in 51. After that, 55. They did it in installments. So we know what it is, Captain, to be out of your land, out of your house, out of your own country, and with one shirt on your back. We have seen this. So the Ghazwa-e-Hind is not a mere expression as far as I am concerned.
So at the end of this discussion, I request you to make your concluding remark with the backdrop of India celebrating, observing Mother Day. We celebrate woman power, Adi Shakti, Durga, and various manifestation of Durga Shakti. So kindly make your concluding remark, and our viewers must be benefited from experience and elder person, knowledgeable, learned person from like you. Please.
No, Captain, we are always on the learning curve. At least my father and my mother always said that
That is
we
the
are
quality
always.
of a learned person.
That's very kind of you. Concluding remarks, I'm very disturbed about what's happening. Number one, let's be very clear, I'm worried. This is a cry from the heart. It's a cry from the mind. Yes, it's a cerebral outpouring, but it's also an outpouring of emotion. Throughout, when we were editing the books and we were getting the articles, I found that the thought process had not changed. My thought process had not really changed from 1992. Deep down, in 92 also, I felt that this great civilization of ours needs to be protected. And I was in a tiny minority. Captain, in 92, do you remember the ambience? Do you remember the prevailing atmosphere? We were all talking about New India and liberalization. Arey bhai, licensing hat gaya or hata do, and then everything will be all right. We had very limited this thing. And the salon circles, the drawing room circles in Delhi, or any of the major metropolitan centers, they are the worst enemies of India. So therefore, if, with your permission, it's a mixed feeling. We are on the cusp of a major change. If we miss it, it's our fault. But I hope under the new ambience, the new structure, they are making mistakes, they will make mistakes. I have friends who listen to me sometimes. Sometimes they say, "Yaar, tum bahut chillate ho." So I'm talking about our friends in government. So there is a mixture of optimism, and yet the really professional Indian this thing also knows that this cusp that we are on, if we miss it, it's the last bus. But we will not miss it. That's my estimate.
Thank you, Mr. Bhattacharya. Mr. Jay Bhattacharya has been very kind. Viewers, you must appreciate that from a very learned, knowledgeable person. A book is authored, and the book is going to be available soon. Online, you can buy it from Amazon, read it, and give your feedback. Also, give your feedback to the initiative of Patriots Forum, from which we bring to you weekly discussion on very important subjects. On 15th of October, India will be celebrating Dussehra. Let's continue the spirit of celebration and celebration of victory, a kind of victory which India is always associated with. We always fight the evil. We are people who have principle. We are people who take entire world as family. We are virtuous and always support, strength, and cooperate with virtuous people. Those who have principle, those who have lived life as a good human being. Inclusive society, let's hope that entire country as one cohesive society remains on path of progress and peace. Thank you very much for joining this discussion. Remain clued in, for which you need to subscribe to our channel so that you get advance intimation of what we are doing and what discussion we bring to you further. Happy Dussehra.